California's Gold is produced in association with KCET Los Angeles and is seen statewide on California Public Television. This series is endorsed by the California Teachers Association, the California School Boards Association, and the California Library Association. The White House. It's one of the most beautiful and most historic places in our country. And of course, it's also where our president works and lives. And here lately, I've had a very strong desire to actually visit the White House. It's been a couple of years since I've been there, and it is a beautiful and a very historic place. Now, to be honest with you, when I first thought about this trip, we were going to have a problem because we had not figured the travel expenses in our yearly production budget. But then it occurred to me, for those of us lucky enough to live here in California, we don't have to leave California to visit the White House. We can stay right here in our own state. And if you're curious as to how in the world we can do such a thing, go to the White House and stay right here at home, well, you're invited to come on along with us on this journey. We're going to have a lot of fun. All you have to do is jump in the car with us, buckle up, and we're going to head down the freeway as we continue our search together for California's White House Gold. I can't tell you how excited I was to be heading for the White House. The journey took us straight out of LA down the 5 freeway to Orange County. Before long, we were in Anaheim, and it was here we began our White House adventure. Well, after a rather uneventful journey down the 5 freeway coming south out of LA, we have finally arrived at the White House. And there it is right there, the White House. And a nice White House it is too. It's all painted white and looks just like the White House. And here to greet us is the First Lady of this White House. Introduce yourself to everybody, Bee.
I am Bee DeArmond, and I've been here since 1955 at this very same location.
Now tell us a little bit about the White House and how this all came about.
Well, Jay and I, now Jay has passed away, but we wanted to have a city of hobby shops, as we had a nice family, and we wanted all our family to take part in all of the different hobbies. And I thought the main one, I've been collecting dolls since I was 12 years old. Now I'm 88. And we wanted to have a building that would look like the White House in Washington, so that when little children came by, they may never get to Washington. And then they could have their picture taken here.
So whose idea was this, yours or your husband's?
Well, I think it could be both, but it was my idea to have a city of hobby shops.
And the White House itself, tell us about how you came up with the scale and the design and all of that.
All you have to do is write to Washington and buy a little book, and it tells all about it. And so in this book it said the rooms were 150 foot long, the building, and 80 foot wide. So Jay scaled it down to 40 foot wide and 75 foot long.
Just half size.
Yeah, just exactly half size. And everything on the outside looks just like it does in Washington.
Wow, it is just beautiful. Have you ever been to the White House, the real White House?
Yes, Jay and I have been there. And we went there twice.
And how does it compare to your White House?
It looks just like it on the outside.
Just a little bigger.
Yeah, and of course the rose garden was put in because when Mrs. Kennedy was there, she wanted a rose garden. And so after the rose garden, Jay put the rose garden in.
Yeah, you have your own little rose garden over here.
Yeah.
You have your own staff here. Your name is?
Shirley.
So you're chief of staff for the First Lady.
No, I just work here once in a while.
And you have family here. Come on in, Alan. You're the son-in-law. Yes. What kind of a reaction did this decision from your mother and father-in-law to build the White House. What kind of reaction did that bring about in the family?
Actually, it was just par for the course.
What do you mean?
Well, it was always ideas, always thoughts, always dreams. Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that?
Now, do you live, which one of these rooms do you actually live here?
I live right upstairs in the White House. I'm the night security.
The house is full of dolls. What in the world have you got going on here, Bee?
Well, we have a little of the very, very oldest, and then right on up to those that are made now.
Now, wait a minute. What do you mean? This is like a doll collection?
This collection started when I was 12 years old, and now I'm 88. But I wanted to have not a whole lot of dolls, just one of every kind.
So you've actually got some dolls that are connected to the White House.
I have all of the president's wives down here in a case.
Wait a minute, where is that?
Let's go a little bit further.
Where is that?
Come on, Shirley, push it.
Okay.
Get that thing going here.
You start right here.
Oh, these are all the first ladies right here.
Yes, they are, starting with Martha Washington.
Oh.
And then right on up, all the way.
So you do have a White House connection here.
Right. Sure do.
Let's walk around just a little bit further around here.
She also was very big in politics.
Oh, look, here are the presidents.
Yeah.
Harry Truman, Franklin Roosevelt, John F. Kennedy, there's Ronald Reagan.
Yep, he's my favorite.
You've got a little bit of everybody in here.
Yep.
Now, the question has to be, well, wait a minute. You've got the presidents right here with the Elvis dolls.
Well, one's as good as the other.
Well, Bee, as much fun as we have had here today, visiting your White House and seeing your doll collection, we could stay here all day and not see all of these dolls.
That's true.
How many you got again?
Over 6,000.
And those are just the ones we see here. You probably got some stashed away upstairs too, don't you?
Yes, beautiful ones up there.
Now, the point is, though, if you come to the White House, the place that I always like to visit is the Oval Office. Where is the Oval Office here?
Well, I'm sorry, but I left that out. We just don't have an Oval Office.
You don't have an Oval Office?
No, not a real Oval Office. Mm-hmm. But if you return, I'll be sure we build one.
Oh, and she probably would, wouldn't she?
Yes, I
She would do that.
Well, I tell you what, we've got to go to the Oval Office. So we're going to have to say goodbye to you. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Shirley, a loyal staff member here of the First Lady's staff here at the White House.
And if you should return, and we hope you do, I want you to see our Shirley Temples, the best that we can ever have.
Boy, I tell you what, she does have dolls here, and this is worth a visit in itself just to see this doll collection here at the White House. But we have now got to say goodbye and leave these hallowed halls and head north to the Oval Office. We'll see you there in just a few minutes.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, we've had a wonderful, wonderful time.
She's a doll herself. She is a doll herself.
Bee was a doll, and her White House staff members were courteous and helpful. But we had to leave. We headed north through L.A. and then west on Highway 118 in Ventura County. We were determined to get to the Oval Office, and we found it in Simi Valley. Well, we have arrived here at Simi Valley on the second leg of our White House tour. And we can kind of give away where we are right now. We are here at the Reagan Presidential Library and Museum, and here to officially greet us is my old friend Duke Blackwood. You are the director of this museum. I must admit, all the years I've lived in California, this is the first time I've ever been here.
Well, first of all, welcome, Huell, and I think you'll find this to be an exciting place.
All right, now starting right off the bat is what you told us was one of the most popular parts. It's kind of like a rite of passage when people arrive here at the Reagan Library.
Exactly. This is the entrance to the museum, and this is a wonderful statue called After the Ride, and people love to come here and have their pictures taken. They like to shake his hand for good luck and then go into the library.
This is wonderful, and it's a very nice, warm way to be welcomed to the library. As Wonderful as this is, you know, though, why we are really here at the library today.
Yes, I understand you'd like to go to the Oval Office.
To the Oval Office, and you do have the Oval Office here, don't you?
Absolutely.
All right, we're inside the Presidential Library, and here to officially greet us are the docents, and you all have heard why we're here, right?
Right. Yes, we have. You're here to see the
Oval
Office.
Now, is the Oval Office a real high point of the tour when people come out here?
It's the most popular thing people want to see.
The most popular? Really?
Most popular.
In the West?
In the West.
Okay, we're getting the idea. This is a big attraction. Thank you all very much. Duke's going to be our tour guide. Do you think he can do a good job?
Great job.
Okay.
Thank you.
Back to work, and we are going inside the Oval Office. And this, when you first see it, is quite impressive. John, come on over here and introduce yourself. You are the curator of this establishment, and this really does kind of take your breath away when you walk in here the first time.
It's almost as if we're allowed to slip in while the president has just gone out for a meeting and look behind the scenes before he returns and catches us eavesdropping.
Now, can we walk in
We'd love to have
through the little gate here? Because what we are seeing here literally is an exact replica, to scale, exact scale of the Oval Office.
That's what makes this particular rendition unique. Some of the other Oval Offices that are available in other presidential libraries are scaled down for space or other issues. But if you walked in today, pace for pace, window pane for window pane, you have the same size. So it's large by our home scale, but certainly not large by the scale of the head of the most powerful nation in the world.
Because I've got to tell you, that's the first thing I think I noticed. It really doesn't seem as big as I thought it would be.
Well, it's not palatial, but certainly the job is big. And I think it fits with the scale of what a democracy or a republic would have, is something that's not ostentatious or too large, but has almost a home feel to it on one hand, but still a very sobering, somber, and respectful tone to it.
That's why you have the lights kind of dimmed just a little bit. It's not glaring in here. It's got a really nice, warm feel to it.
Precisely, again, almost a home feel to it, and there's some pragmatic things, even though much of what you see here are replica, because the real things are still at the Oval Office for George W. Bush to utilize. Certain real items that came with when the Reagans left and returned to California came with them because they were personal items, so the light helps by keeping the levels down. We don't deteriorate the material, so generations can come and enjoy the same thing we're doing right now.
Now, are we seeing the Oval Office exactly as it was when Reagan was president?
Exactly, down to the furnishings, the colors, the pictures, everything. This would have been the eve of him leaving. This is exactly, it's kind of like a snapshot of history.
All right, let's take a tour, John. Give us, I see the jelly beans right over here.
If you need some jelly bellies during the tour, please make sure you take a handful as you leave.
Now, he put these on the table to share with his guests, right?
His guests, again, to make a conversation point, but also, again, if someone comes to your home, you offer them beverage or food or whatever, and this was a part of his sense of style and his sense of comfort with anybody who came in, whether they be a heads of state or some child coming in who had received an award from a school, and they were only there for a few minutes of the photo opportunity, but everybody kind of got the same home-style treatment.
Now, these are the chairs that you always see on the news when he's sitting there visiting, when the president is sitting visiting with a foreign head of state or some important person.
Precisely. Gorbachev may be joining him here, or at another time he's having a meeting with high-level cabinet members or others. So Colin Powell in those days, who was still serving in the military, might be sitting next to him and, again, engaging in a regular business meeting as we would have at our own offices.
What's the deal on the painting? Because doesn't each president kind of get to choose what goes in the Oval Office?
The Oval Office is a combination of tradition and personal sort of style and flair. So obviously many times you'll have the painting by Peel of Washington because the father of the country, the first president, and numerous presidents will have that in the Oval Office, but they may change the other artwork based upon other items that are available in the White House that are actually owned by the White House on behalf of the American people. But each time they make a change, there are those personal entities, photographs of the wife and the family and the children and friends, books that you love. As we look around soon, we'll see a lot of Western things and things having to do with horses, natural for the president who was quite an equestrian since his days as a young cavalry officer in the 1930s.
What about something as simple as the way the couches were upholstered and the flowers on the table, just the simple homey things?
Right on target. The pillows, for instance, are really the pillows that sat on the couches during that time period. So
these pillows
would be there as the president and first lady might be entertaining friends or guests or dignitaries, and so they would add just that little, just touch of color, but also that personalized look at how it is.
Is this a Nancy touch here?
In this particular case, Mrs. Reagan was actually very, very active in helping the White House come into its own. She actually had a plan which was activated that the White House became, under the American Association of Museums, an official accredited museum. So everything was properly maintained for future generations, just as we would attempt to do so here in the library.
And isn't this interesting? Because when we were walking over here, Duke said, "Don't sit on the couch."
No, because this is an exhibit, this is a museum, so we have to respect that. The other thing is with an office like this is functional. You talked about the size of this, but if any larger, then when you're in a meeting, whether it's a high level or just a staff meeting, you want to have it functional, and these are very functional.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have sat on the couches because really when you come in here, you immediately feel a real respect for where you are. It really makes you feel like you are in the Oval Office.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I feel a bit remiss not having my jacket on, because I don't know if you know the story, but President Reagan, every time he was in the Oval Office, never took off his jacket out of respect of the Oval Office. Yeah. That's the type of man President Reagan was as president.
Yeah. Let's look at all this stuff over here, John. We've got some wonderful little sculptures here, and this is the Western look that you're talking about.
Precisely. If you would have come into this office in the JFK administration, a PT-109 model might have been in this area, whereas Paul Rossi was the sculptor of these saddles, and they literally are saddles from early California and early Western history. And these are sculptures by Harry Jackson and people such as Charlie Russell. Again, presidents like Theodore Roosevelt would have loved this, but another president from another East Coast or background would have had other items in the area.
The complete works of Jefferson. And you have history books of the United States. Over here you have, here are the pictures. Now, are these the exact pictures that would have been on this table?
Not only the pictures are themselves, but in many cases you'll notice the frames are the exact frames that they would have been in. And so when you vacate the Oval Office, you carefully pack your treasured items. Obviously, President Eisenhower was someone who President Reagan admired highly, and so that was front and center, along with close pictures of the family and the family dogs in certain cases.
Wow.
So it really, again, is that touch of the family itself.
And the desk, do you think the desk was this clean?
I believe Mr.
Why are you laughing?
Certainly better about working than we are.
No, I mean, really, there's nothing on the desk at all.
Well, he was provided briefings throughout his presidency, so most of the work would come to him and he would look at that. But the desk is very interesting. It's the desk most people remember as John with President Kennedy, the famous photo of him being out there. But if you notice down here on the front of it, you can see that it looks like it was added on. Well, President Reagan was a large man when he was in the Oval Office, and they actually had to raise the desk so he could fit into it. And the chair was with him from the governor's day, so that's why they did that.
So he brought this chair with him from California to the Oval Office?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is the exact
Yeah,
chair.
that's an original artifact.
This is not a replica.
Correct. The desk is a replica because it's being currently used in the White House.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned, Huell, and rightly so, that it is a mix and match of what you bring and what was there. The desk was actually presented in 1880 to President Rutherford B. Hayes, the original, by Queen Victoria from a ship called the Resolute. That was an American-built ship given to the English for an exploration in the 1850s to the Arctic. And when the ship went aground onto the ice, the Queen eventually had some of the timber salvaged, had it made it as another token of friendship between the two countries and sent back. So every president from Rutherford B. Hayes to JFK used it, and then for 17 years it went into the Smithsonian and finally came back during the Carter administration to the Oval Office where it now stands again.
Now here, right on the desk, is this little sign, "It can be done."
Precisely. There's a lot of wonderful mottos here, but perhaps the one that most embodies Mr. Reagan is a quotation from one of his favorite presidents.
There is no limit to what a man can do or where he can go if he doesn't mind who gets the credit.
And people ascribe that to Abraham Lincoln. And so, but Mr. Reagan believed in that strongly to the degree that he thought it was a good motto to use when one lived in the Beltway in Washington, D.C.
Now, do we know where these doors go in the real White House?
Some will
If you
go
open this door, where would you be?
You'll go off into study areas. There's actually a small area where there's some displays of crystal and china, so that if you're a VIP guest, I can show you a little bit of what's
we
around.
Go right through
Go
here.
right through there. And some of them are very functional. They're going to go off into your chief of staff's office or
So
other
this
areas
is where the chief of staff,
in the various areas
does this
here.
door open?
This one is one of the props.
It's under repair, Huell.
I think that's where the Secret Service come out. We're not sure.
I got you.
And then, of course, you can go out into the garden through the doors on the side.
So we're looking out at the same kind of view that he would have had sitting there at the Oval Office. Boy, and oh, look at this. Now, this has to be one of the finer pieces right here.
Remington was one of his, obviously interested in Remington, as, again, Theodore Roosevelt long before him. Both of them have a lot of in common in certain senses of love of Western horses, and so there were Remington bronzes as well as say, Russells in the Oval Office during that period.
And we go all the way from this wonderful Remington down to the floor, and if you look at the floor, you tell me there's even a story about this wooden floor.
The Oval Office, as we know it, is the second Oval Office. One was built in 1909 by William Howard Taft in another part of the East Wing. When the East Wing was expanded under FDR, Roosevelt had it put in the southeast corner and a cork floor put in, probably for acoustics amongst
Cork.
Cork, just like we take out of a wine bottle in those wonderful Napa, vineyards. So that floor was there until someone decided it was more logical, if you will, to put down linoleum, which is not exactly, shall we say, the most presidential.
Wait a minute, there was linoleum on the Oval Office floor.
There was linoleum down here until the Reagan administration, and during the Reagan administration, a Kentucky firm donated the wood, and a Los Angeles firm installed the wooden floor that is now in the Oval Office.
Boy, I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall when Nancy Reagan walked in the Oval Office and saw linoleum on the floor. I bet she's the one who decided to get that stuff up right away.
Well, certainly the look is...
I know you all can't say anything.
Well,
I
we don't
can't.
know. To be honest, we just don't know. But it shows you the importance of being presidential. And when people come to visit, as you said, when you first walk in here, this is presidential. And there's a lot to be said about that when you're dealing at that level.
Yeah. Well, as we end our tour of the Oval Office, I was just struck by the idea that even though the White House, millions of people have toured the White House, but the vast majority of us will never have the opportunity to go in the actual Oval Office.
I would probably say 99.99% of America will never see the actual Oval Office, but that's what makes this so special here at the Reagan Library.
You think that's what captivates the tourist when they come through here? This place has a certain mystique to it, doesn't it?
There's not only mystique, but there's history. So the men that have served this office and through the country throughout the years, this is where the decisions are made.
Yeah. Boy, it's just a wonderful, wonderful place. Thank you, John. As the curator, you got to be proud of this.
This is an extraordinary opportunity. It's an honor to serve, even though the president is out for a few moments.
Yeah. The president is not here, but the sense of history is certainly here. And I tell you what, we have succeeded in our quest to visit the White House and never leave California. It's here, this wonderful Oval Office, right here in the Reagan Presidential Library and Museum in Simi Valley. Not only is this place a wonderful example of our history as a nation, but it is also a fine example of California's gold. Goodbye, everybody.
Someone once asked me how I felt on my first day in this room. Strange as it may seem, I was reminded of the 8 years I'd spent as governor of California. There was the same staff meeting to begin the day, followed by a full schedule of appointments. I sat in the same chair I'd used in Sacramento. Most important of all, I found myself confronting an economic crisis reminiscent of the problems I had faced earlier as governor. But in other ways, it was all so different. Though I spent 8 years in this office, I never thought of it as mine. I was just the latest temporary occupant in a long and distinguished line going back to Theodore Roosevelt. On January 20th, 1989, General Colin Powell, my national security advisor, summed it all up in his final morning briefing when he said, "The world is quiet this morning, Mr. President." They were the last words I heard in this office, and the best.
Well, hello everybody, I'm Huell Hauser, and I sure hope you enjoyed this adventure. If you'd like to see it again or share it with your family or friends, or perhaps donate a copy to your local school or library, it's available on video cassette and on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727 and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.